Hola, bienvenidos a un té con manzanilla. Bueno, no podría estar más feliz de tener a una persona que ha inspirado. Eh, I'm- I would say in English too. I'm telling that people that I'm very happy to have someone that inspired me a lot. Me ha inspirado a seguir adelante, a estudiar, a cambiar mi mentalidad y a acercarme pues a nuevas oportunidades y la verdad es que hice el coaching con ella y estoy muy contenta. Summer es una coach profesional, tiene años atendiendo personas y además enseñando y tiene un programa especial si quieren ser coaches certificados. Bueno, ella lo está haciendo y tiene un programa que lleva de You on Fire, donde empieza y ayuda a muchas personas a poder salir adelante, a aceptar sus cuerpos y dejar las dietas atrás. Summer, welcome to the Té con Manzanilla. I'm so happy to having you here, excited, and it's an honor for me.
Thank you so much for having me. It's the first time someone's introduced me in a different language, so it's very good to hear.
Oh well, get used to because I feel like a lot of people listening all the world. I know well, you can tell me more. Like you can see your podcast for sure is around the world in many languages. So thank you for be here. Thank you for be present to the Spanish speakers because I know they need to hear your knowledge and your experience about this. Because how many years you have been in the field already?
Yeah, so since 2014, so just over a decade now. Yeah. So we're yeah, just over 10 years. But even before that, I was kind of like starting to make that transition from um supporting people with nutrition stuff to then incorporating body image because I realized that that was really important. And then about 10 years ago, I transitioned to just talking about body image.
Yeah, that's awesome. And do you think it's a difference between now and 10 years ago? The field is different. How do you feel that?
Yeah, so I think a couple things. So for me personally, I think I've evolved and grown a lot because I think when I started, I really looked at body image as an individual issue instead of a an issue that happens in relation to the culture that we live in. Um so that's really changed just in terms of like the the practice or like the perspective that I take and the way that we talk about body image and the way that I teach body image. And so that's one big change that has happened over 10 years, but also just from like an overall body image like conversation, there weren't a lot of people talking about it 10 years ago. I think the reason why I started a podcast then was because there were so few
Yeah.
people talking about it. And I thought, well, there was just a lot of interest. I was interviewed on a couple of different podcasts, and there was a lot of interest in what I was talking about. And so then I started my podcast, and I was really like one of the only people that I can recall that called themselves, you know, a body image coach and really specialized in that one area. And so that's really changed. And just from a cultural perspective, I think that there's been a lot of changes. You know, body positivity became more mainstream 10 years ago, maybe like 7 years ago, like 7 years ago. Like that's when body positivity is like a word or a phrase, a movement started to gain traction. And so that was really interesting to see because it felt very hopeful. It felt like, oh, maybe things are going to change. There was more representation, there was more demand for representation. But then in the last couple of years, we've kind of seen that go back, right? Like we've seen sort of the pendulum swing back to less representation and more thin ideal and sort of
Yeah.
the ideal body of the 90s and early 2000s that was extremely thin has resurfaced again. And I mean, I think it's a testament to the fact that beauty standards are always changing, and that the issues are really systemic. We have to be looking at talking about having conversations around weight discrimination, because body positivity doesn't fix weight discrimination. So really looking at it and having conversations related to the systems that cause us to have these issues in our body is the thing that I feel so strongly about now, because mainstream body positivity didn't really change anything. It kind of changed some of the representation for a while. Maybe it changed some people's viewpoints, but we haven't seen, changes to the way that people are treated based on their body. And in fact, I think in a lot of cases, it's almost become worse because of the proliferation of weight loss drugs.
Yeah, it's very important. What do you say now? Because thinking like 10 years ago, I lived in Mexico, right? I born there and I was living there. And I never hear nothing about it, like body positivity, nothing like that. I mean, it's always been there in impacts around the world. It's like not just a specific place in the world, it's around the world. And it doesn't matter if you grow up in a different kind of cultures or different, um, let's say, yeah, experiences. Body image is there, and it's there in the same way for you, for me, and for all the women's, all the men's, all the genders. It's there and impacts in many ways. And as you say, the systems also impacts you, probably in different way, but impacts you in the way that
Yes.
you act and in the way that you behave and in the way that you see yourself at the mirror, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely like we're internalizing all of these things, and then, feeling bad about ourselves as a result. So
Yeah.
we really have to look at, yeah, where that's coming from instead of just thinking it's like an individual problem.
Yeah, or just a specific region problem. No, it's around the world and it's for all of us. And we need to, even if it's impact in a different way for you, it's impacting. I mean, even if you have you can tell me, I have a good relation with my body. Yeah, but it still impact on you and what you say and the way that you act and the way that you think and the way that you share this impacts in others. So it's important that we talk, all of us, and learn and exposure yourself to this information is really important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's such an important conversation to be having, and especially when we see the increased pressure on young people to look a certain way, and I think the beauty ideal has I don't know what it's like in Mexico, like if it's different at all, but I'm sure it's kind of influenced by
Of
like North
course.
American beauty standards, but like it's also now your face has to look a certain way, and the impact of like social media and the filters on social media. And so I just think that like you see the impact on the younger generation, and it's like, is that what we want for them? Like to be so fixated on every little flaw on their face
Yeah.
and their body. So it's not just the body now, it's like their whole appearance. And it's troubling to see. And there's so many industries that make so much money off of that. Um, that it's to me, it's just like infuriating as someone who can kind of step outside of it and see what's happening and be like, it's just taking so much time and money from people
Yeah.
and never delivering what it says it's going to deliver, which is like happiness and
Yeah.
confidence. And it never fills that void of feeling like you're not good enough. It's kind of like you're just putting these band-aids over these, big wounds, and it doesn't work. It doesn't help.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that because it really is. I don't know. Do you know the number of the billions of dollars that the beauty in those three costs right now? Because I don't know, but
Not off the top of my head. I did pull it recently for a workshop that I did, but I can't. It was a lot. It was
I
like
feel like
probably more than you think. It's like billions of dollars globally, and I
yes,
think,
it's
a-
crazy.
and it's projected to grow at I can't remember, like double-digit percentages over the next few years, or projected to like double or something. I should look it up for you.
I
But
mean, I didn't
anyways,
even
it's
know.
troubling.
It's growing, and it's, as you say, it's growing. I've had my teenagers, kids. I mean, I used to be teenager, and I used to be a very simple teenager, maybe, but I didn't make or wear a lot of makeup, just not just make mascara and that kind of things.
Yeah,
Now, the things that they are using and the expenses that cost to the girls, like feel beauty, because it's just a feeling. Like, okay, I want to feel beauty because they put a lot of things in their faces. They have so many products. They're like, man, they have more than me.
I know. Yeah, I don't even think I washed my face until I was like somewhere in my 20s. Like I don't
Oh,
remember. I never had like a skincare routine.
yeah,
Um and yeah, like the makeup and everything, it's like it's so much more excessive now, and I think because they can capitalize on off of like the insecurity of these younger
yes,
girls, and they position it as like self-care and empowerment, and they get all these celebrity endorsements and influencer endorsements, and then and yeah, and so you have all these young people like spending so much of their time and energy towards beauty, and you have to wonder like, yeah, that the best use of those resources. And of course I don't judge young people, because I think I would be fully invested in that too if I was younger, if I was a teenager in this era instead of back when I was a teenager.
yeah. I mean, and it's hard. As mom, it's hard to take them away of them because even if I talk to them, it's like they feel so pressured to belong, and they feel like they need to be part of these movements and they need to use it, and it's like, oof, do I really want to go and get like the like fight these battles with them, or just give the advices, talk to them, give the resources, read more, and then just wonder if they are going to decide one day or open their eyes and say, okay, I don't need all of this. But it's
Yeah.
hard as a mom, honestly.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. Yeah, I mean, my son's only 6, so
Oh,
I'm just trying to enjoy the innocence
yeah,
of this
enjoy,
in
enjoy.
this period of time. But yeah, I think about, I've got friends with teenage daughters, and yeah, it would be really
Yeah.
difficult to kind of be a parent in that situation for sure.
Summer, well, let's go to the point because the time is flying so fast. Um, Tell me, because I know, well, and for sure a lot of people are listening this that you say body positive. Then I hear body acceptance. Then I hear also body neutrality. Then I hear a lot of body something.
Yeah.
So what is the difference? Let's start for that. What is the difference between all of these movements?
Yeah, it's a good question. And like I don't hold like the formal definition on any of these,
Yes.
but I will tell you my perception of them and how I kind of, use them when I'm working with clients. I think body positivity is about, just being like positive about your body, and it really puts a focus on sort of like loving your body, and in particular like this sort of idea that like all bodies are beautiful, which I think I like we can all get behind. I think that it's really important to see beauty in diversity,
Yeah.
but where I feel like that particular term falls short is that it is keeping the focus on beauty, and like keeping the focus on liking the way that we look, and I think it can feel like a tall order for a lot of people when they're coming from a place where they feel a lot of body shame. The idea of like feeling positive about your body, or loving your body, or perceiving yourself as beautiful just feels so far-fetched that I've had conversations with clients where they're beating themselves up for beating themselves up. So they feel ashamed for feeling ashamed, because they're like, I know I should be more positive about my body. Like I know I should love my body, but I don't. And so I think that term um it can kind of lead people astray. So it's one of those expressions where I always ask people like, what do you think about body positivity? And if it resonates with you, if you like that term, great, you can use it. But if it has a more disempowering effect on you and makes you feel like you're not trying hard enough, or you should be, you know, somewhere different than you are, then that's not a helpful term. I tend to use like body neutrality and body acceptance a little more interchangeably, because I think that body acceptance is really the practice of just accepting what's here. Like, and accepting that maybe some days you're going to like it, maybe some days you're not. But how can we cultivate this unconditional acceptance for ourselves, you know, regardless of how we look? So, because we know our body's going to change, we're all going to age. So how can we? It's all I see body acceptance as almost more like a practice. It's like, how can we practice acceptance for our whole selves? And sometimes that means accepting that, like, I'm having a day where I'm feeling really ashamed of my body. But I'm going to accept that this is just how I'm feeling today, and work towards like giving myself that unconditional self-acceptance and self-love, um, instead of making it conditional on like having to look a certain way. So that's kind of how I see body
Mhm.
acceptance. And then body neutrality, I see as more like a state of being. So just being more emotionally neutral about your
Yeah.
appearance. So, what I mean by that is being able to look in the mirror, and maybe you like what you see, maybe you don't, but either way, it doesn't make or break you. You're just able to kind of go out and live your life, and it's not defining how you feel about yourself as a whole. And so that to me feels like a more achievable place to get to for most people. And when I work with clients, like that feels like a bit of a relief, because they think, okay, that feels more realistic than me seeing a picture of myself and loving how I look, you know?
Yeah. So,
So yeah, go ahead.
because you say something that makes me ask you this. It's okay if I feel ashamed of my body. It's okay. I can feel ashamed with for my body when I even practicing this body acceptance.
Yeah, I mean, we're living in a culture where we're constantly told that we're not good enough and that there's something wrong with our bodies. So it makes perfect sense why you would feel ashamed. And so it's more about like, how are we, instead of pathologizing that as like there being something wrong with you, it's like, how do we comfort and tend to ourselves when we're having moments where we are feeling ashamed? So it doesn't mean that like we just that it's okay to just feel ashamed of your body every single day. Like, I mean, of course it is okay to do that too, but like if that is causing distress in your life,
Yes.
there's ways to get support to mitigate that shame and to feel better. But when we are having those moments, I think it's about like meeting ourselves with kindness and comfort, instead of then judging ourselves for feeling that way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Makes sense a lot because, well, when I practice that with clients too, it's always this part of feeling bad, as you said before, like feeling bad for feeling ashamed, and they shouldn't be feeling shame, but they feel like what they can
Yeah.
do. Like, well, it's your emotion. We need to also accept that emotion, and it's there, and it's a reason. It's not like you say, like it's reasonable that you feel in that way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
it makes sense.
yeah, yeah. It's not okay. It's not bad. It's not about moral thing. It just happens. And it's a
Yeah.
reason. Yeah. And validated, I think it's important.
Yeah, right. Because I think a lot of people feel like there's something wrong with them because they feel that way. And so I want to just validate that it makes sense that people feel that way.
Yeah.
Um, and like, especially given this world that we live in, and most people have had a lot of kind of like traumatic experiences with their body, whether that's because their parents told them that they needed to lose weight, or they were bullied for their body, or they were rejected because of their appearance. Like, you know, all of those things are going to make us more sensitive to our appearance and changes in our body. And so
Yes.
I think we have to like look at the whole perspective, and be a little more gentle and a little more kinder with ourselves. And also knowing that like, yes, if there's ways to work through those, so that we are able to become more resilient, so that when we do have those moments of shame, it's not sending us into a spiral. We're able to kind of like work our way through it and come back to a better place.
Yeah, it's achievable. I mean, we can reach that point where we can say, okay, I feel accepted in my body right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible for all the people, or it's not?
Are you asking me if it's possible
Yeah.
for everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I don't know. Like that's such a hard question because I think it depends on the person and it depends on someone's willingness to want to change and to want to exist in this system where they may still be discriminated against because of their body size. And so
Yeah.
I really have empathy for people who choose to just to lose weight because that's the only way that they feel like they can keep themselves safe and feel like they belong. Um, so yeah, so like, do I think it's possible for everybody? I think if everybody wants that for themselves, but I also have to put this within reason that, and this is something Danny said once, who you also were trained with and who I work with, but she said, we haven't created the world where it's really safe for everybody to just exist in their body. So it's hard to, put that expectation that everyone can do that.
Yeah, and I ask you that because sometimes outside you can feel that the what's in the social media is all this message that you can do it, you can do it, you always can, the way that you see yourself, you always can. And as we say before, sometimes it's not, they don't want to really. It's a lot of things happen around her, that a
Yeah.
lot of social determinants that is there, that it's not that they don't want to, it's like maybe it's not the time, I don't know, like. And in some points these messages damage more than helps to the people.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why it's like not every message on social media is going to be helpful. And so being discerning of whether that is helpful for you and whether you need to just scroll by that. But yeah, it's so hard with social media because there's not a lot of nuance or room for like people to list off all the different exceptions to it. Yeah.
I know, and then use these terms in such a, I'm sorry, but like stupid way, because sometimes the people tell me like, I don't know, women doing exercise with this, with all these messages that my body is the most important and your body has to look at mine, and they bring like, I have body acceptance there, like, oh, don't use it, like, why, like, oh, gets me crazy, really.
Oh yeah, it's really been co-opted to
Yeah.
in a negative way that's counter to what it really means. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Summer, what if you can tell the people what could be the I don't know how many steps, but what could be the first steps to reach this body neutrality? You say that is the most, that's, I don't know if say it is correct, but the easiest step to approach. So what we could do?
Yeah, I think the easiest, like the best place to start is by looking at your environment and assessing what is in your environment that is reinforcing this belief that thinner is better. Because anything that is reinforcing this belief that thinner is better is contributing to the belief in your mind that you would be better if you're thinner. And that's going to make you be afraid of gaining weight, feel like your body isn't good enough as it is, and desire weight loss. And so, um, ultimately, like we want to get to a place where we just look at bodies and fat bodies, thin bodies, they're just neutral descriptors. There's no like hierarchy there. And obviously that doesn't exist in our culture, but that's kind of like the belief system that we want to fight against and that we want to develop in our own minds is that, bodies are just bodies, fat and is fat, thin is just thin. And so one of the simplest things we can do is look at our environment. So for example, like your social media, the TV shows that you watch, the books that you read, like if you're getting all these messages and they can be like covert messages, so somebody actually saying like, losing weight is better, or they can be more overt. So like, actually, did I just mix those two words up? Sorry. I just had a blunder there. Overt would be like them being like explicitly saying like thinner is better, and covert is more like just seeing thin bodies all the time, right? And so I think being really critical of the messages that we're taking in and doing whatever we can to get rid of or eliminate a lot of those inputs. And then replacing those inputs with stuff that supports the belief that all bodies are worthy of respect. And so changing your social media feed so that you're seeing fat bodies and you're seeing people just live their life and wear cute outfits and do athletic things um and all of that other stuff, because that will start to break down that harmful belief inside of you that's making you question your own value and your own worth. And so changing social media is like such an easy thing to do. And it's one of the first steps that I encourage people to do. But you can also like take it bigger than that and look at your whole environment. So even thinking about like if every time you open your closet, there's clothes in there that make you feel self-conscious, they make you question yourself, like maybe the jeans are too tight or they don't fit you anymore. Can you get rid of that stuff, or can you just like put that away? Or if you're stepping on the scale, if you're still using a scale and every time you step on it, it makes you panic about your weight, like can we reduce that? So there's a lot of things that people are often taking in that are reinforcing that their body isn't good enough. And if that the easiest first step we can do is start to change some of those things, because it's immediately going to reduce that noise that's coming in, and then we can replace it with some stuff that's going to be more helpful. And social media, I think, can be a good tool for that. Even just spending 5 minutes a day looking at bodies that are larger than your own, that show diversity, can make such a huge difference for people. Um, and so that's like one of the simplest steps. I don't know if you would agree with that or if you would have a different one. Like, what do you
No,
think?
I totally agree with that because it's something external that you don't have to go inside of you to, of course you had to, but it's another step of the work. But in the meantime, or at the beginning, the easy way to approach is yes, expose yourself to all these bodies and give a space in your mind to start accepting and question yourself about how do you feel to see these bodies? What did you think about it? Why you think like that? Where is coming from all that? And of course, the scale is something really important to have. You had to read it off, and all these clothes more because when I work with people with eating disorders, it's very like touch each other, right? Body image
Yeah.
and eating disorder are is not the same, but are coming together. So the people don't want to recover because they don't want to get fat. They don't want
Yeah.
to change their body image.
Mhm.
But I put it in this because they still hate the body, right? It's not like they
Yes.
love the bodies, doesn't matter how, but they're still like, I can do this. I can get rid of my scale because that made me feel secure. Well, it's not made you feel secure. It's get you so much stress just every day. So you can do that. It's easy to do that and just, I don't know, treat trauma. That's very hard, right? So
Yes.
start with the scale. I think I agree totally with you.
Yeah. Yeah. They're just like tangible changes. Some
Yes.
of the other work about, for example, like um, being more compassionate with yourself
Yes.
and really exploring your beliefs, like that stuff takes a little more, like that's like kind of deeper work. It can take
Yes.
longer. Whereas like these are things you can do right away. They're scary, but you can do them right away. And they do make a big difference.
It do. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
totally agree. It makes a lot of difference. And also, I think you say it too, like read. What are you reading? Let's start what read and expose to different kind of words because sometimes we don't have even the language of kindness. So we don't know
Yes.
it. What else I can say to myself that could be kind? Well, read. Read, can you be kind with yourself? I'm not saying practice, just read it. Learn
Yes.
new verbs, learn new words that make you feel comfortable to say it to yourself.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, yeah. And like podcasts are really good for that too. Like
Yes.
just like obviously listening to this conversation. And there's so many good ones now where you can listen to people's stories and they give you that story that you're not really getting in the mainstream media, of
Yeah.
people just, accepting themselves and feeling good in their body and recovering from an eating disorder and everything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super important. And I want to relate this subject because you say, I think it's really important. Our bodies, you say it, are going to change always
Mhm.
and aging. And I think it's been a big problem now. We talk about teenagers, but now this new era of like mature women's accepting their bodies and these changes, it's coming really hard. I mean, I saw it with my mom, but not with my grandma. My grandma, I feel like she just accept that she's aging. It's okay. But now it's so hard to accept that you are getting old.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big period of time. And especially like people who will go through perimenopause. Um, it's like a unique time that makes people a lot more vulnerable to body image concerns, as well as like relapses with eating disorders and disordered eating. Because it's not just because our bodies often change in so perimenopause is like this is the period of time before menopause where your hormones are starting to fluctuate, and there's a lot of different symptoms that can accompany that. So mental health challenges like sleep disruption, anxiety, depression, rage, those are really common symptoms that happen during perimenopause. And then you have like the physical symptoms like hot flashes, as well as like a redistribution of your body fat. So sometimes a lot of people will get more body fat in their stomach area, which is where a lot of people are self-conscious, or maybe they lose some muscle mass, so they're just noticing like some changes in their body as well. There's the aging changes, like
Yeah.
your skin texture changes, the coloring changes, you're getting wrinkles. So you're going through like all of these things. And then on top of that, it's a period of life. Like most people would probably be in their 40s when this happens. And so then most people are dealing with all this other stuff too. So whether it be like family or friends who are sick or who have passed away, potentially like still having dealing with children. So it could be like teenagers, or in my case, because I had my kid late, like a young child. Then people are often still working, and then there's like more financial strain because you're also thinking about like your children or your elders or and your own retirement. Like it's like the perfect storm for issues because you've got so much stuff happening on top of the hormonal changes. Um, and so that is why I think that period of time can make people so much more vulnerable. It's not even that I think, it's actually what the research says. So um, I've done a lot of research around it because I'm dedicating most of my research at school around like body image and eating disorders in midlife. And so it's interesting these are not just my thoughts. This is
It's
this is
real.
what the research
Yeah.
says. And they say like some of the studies that have looked at the time frames is that perimenopause specifically is when body image is kind of like the worst, and
Oh,
then it can get better like like once you hit menopause is when your period completely stops. um but so yeah, it is a really difficult time for
it
people.
is. And I feel like, listen to you, we are in this age, and it's like if we feel very vulnerable and we have kids of teenagers,
Mhm.
and they look at us, right? And they look the moms and they look the dads and they look the way that they act and the behaviors around them. And that also impact in them too. So it's really tricky, and I feel like it's really important because I saw a lot of women's, well, this is not just about women's, but I saw it a lot of like getting all these drugs or go to surgery. I'm not saying it's wrong or bad, but it's like, is this period of time that they feel like they need to do something
Yes.
about their bodies because their life is going. So if they don't do it now, what is like a catastrophe coming after? I don't know. It feels like that.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. And then there's like all this pressure to look the same age. Like
Yeah.
if you think about 30 years ago, there wasn't that pressure to stay looking young.
Yeah.
I think it's like increased significantly like that. And it's because there's so many more procedures and injections and skincare things that you can buy into. It's a huge profit for that industry. Again, another industry that's worth like billions that is also growing at like this extremely rapid pace that's capitalizing off of that vulnerable time, like you said. And so people are feeling like they're losing a sense of their identity. They're feeling more invisible as well. They're feeling like they're aging out of the beauty standards, so feeling less significant, and so just feeling like I have to do something. And then with all the other aspects of their life that feel more out of control, like it does give you that sense of control. So I think a lot of people turn to like dieting or surgery or injections or anything to like try and maintain some sense of control and maintain some sense of like beauty, quote unquote. And so yeah, it's really like again, like looking at it from a cultural perspective, I think ageism has become that much worse. I think there's like age positivity, like we're more
Yeah.
accepting of like people being able to like do really cool things as they age, and but the beauty standards around aging have gotten so much worse.
It is so much work and so much effect in all of us. I mean,
Yeah.
I because we do our job, you and me, I've been training for you and all these things, and I been exposed and I healing and all these things. But still, you go outside and you can close your eyes and see like how many billboards you see outside,
Yeah.
how many movies you feel outside, how the representation. I know it's more representation now, but still, it's like they need to be thin, they need to be white, they need to be this way, they need to be fashionist, they need to like all these standards that put it to age it, aging like it's a lot and it's hard.
Yeah, and it's hard to go against that. And it's hard to go against that. And especially depending on like your peer group, like if all of your other friends are, getting Botox, like it's hard to be the person that doesn't. It does like I'm have experience with that. And I'm like, I do question myself, and I feel like I have a pretty solid relationship with my body that I've worked really hard to get.
Yeah,
But it has become like more like vulnerable during this time, and just having those sort of like thoughts and questions about it, and yeah, and just noticing it like everywhere. And I find it so refreshing when I find people who are aging naturally. Like it's just I'm like, oh, it's so good to see. Like,
I
thank you.
know. I cried. I know. The other day I have a couple white hairs here, and
Yeah.
my daughter came and said, "No, mom, you can't have white hairs." And I said, "Yes, I can. Look at here. I can. It's not that I choose it. It's here. Uh, you had to pay. You had to put something that I tint and put color there." I said, "No, it's fine. I like it." I talk about me and everything like, but it's hard. I
Yeah.
mean, it's hard to see your body change, but it's not just
Yeah.
your body, your energy, all these things
Oh,
that you said
yeah.
is different. So it's if you, I feel like, okay, let's go start to look other things, right? It's going to change and it's not your body. It's all around is changing and it's for a reason because you get in age, you have more experience, you are also more, I think, I don't know if that happens to you, but at least for me, um, there is things that have more weight and I feel it's more important now than before. I have more focus in very special and important things than before, and that's because we are aging. Before we just young and want to do a lot of things. Now it's like, okay, this is really important for me. I want to put attention in there. We can be more focused, we can be different things that the aging bring. right? Brings
Yeah.
to your mind. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think like it can, and it is really important to connect with like what's important to you and what you really value. And I think that that can be a good like blueprint and anchor for you to age more positively. Um and yeah, and that's also like what the research supports is that if you have a more positive perspective on aging and if you have more optimism about it, then you tend to have like a better better well-being going through that perimenopausal process and aging process. Yeah.
If you can give us before we left, because I know the time is going, I don't know, like less red flags, 5 red flags to with all these messages around perimenopause, menopause that they are nothing to related to body positive, but they sell it like body positive. What could be these messages?
Yeah, like so is what you're asking like what to look out for like with all the sort of
Yeah, looking at this, yeah, red flags, because sometimes I feel there is so many messages we're talking about, like there is a lot of people using these concepts, but it's like it's still, I don't know, like diet culture is still like beauty in there, is still like so many systems, like just guess like
yeah.
that kind of thing. Like what could be these red flags? Like, no, this is not about red positive. No, it's not about like body acceptance. It's not about body neutrality. Even they say it. What could be that?
Yes, yes. Okay, okay. Yeah, so I think like just even just like tuning into yourself and thinking, is this making me believe that there's a problem that I need to fix? Like, is this making me believe that there's something wrong with me that now I need to fix that? And I think that that's especially important because you'll get an advertisement for something that talks about like I don't know, making your neck look smoother. And it's like, well, I hadn't really considered that there was something wrong with my neck. But you know, so I think it's like and just noticing like is this making you feel like there's something wrong? And it's hard because sometimes the emotion we feel when we see something like that is actually like hope. Like it's almost like a dopamine hit because we're like, oh, this thing's going to make me feel better. But is it making you believe that there's something wrong with you and that therefore they have a solution to fix that, right? And so you have to be really like you have to kind of like slow down and really think about that. But I think any messages that are promoting that like thinner is better, um, that your body is a problem to be fixed, that your skin is a problem to be fixed, that yeah, that that youth is better, any of those things is a red flag to me. And I think the problem is that they position them under the umbrella of empowerment. So they're marketed as like self-care and empowerment and like I said, like that can make you feel hopeful and like, ooh, this is a great thing, or no, I'm gonna do this to take care of myself, but it doesn't fill that void of not feeling good enough. Like it will never do that. And so I it's a tricky thing, but I think it's just like we have to slow down and really like dissect what these things are promising and what they're saying, and like whether you want to spend your like your hard-earned money and time on that, knowing that like it might temporarily make you feel good, but it will never solve that like belief
Yeah,
that you're not good enough. Like that is something that needs to be worked on from a psychological perspective and not an appearance perspective.
I
Does that
love
answer
that.
your question?
Yeah, answer. So yeah, answer a lot, and I love that because it's true. I mean, asking asking and reflect what this message really wants for me, right? What
Yes.
they
Yeah.
asking for me, and does really is going to solve a problem, or they are creating the problem, and it's not a problem even.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I see so much of that with the aging stuff. It's like I get ads for things and I'm like, I didn't even think about this.
I
Like
know.
I didn't even like why and I don't want to, you know,
Yeah,
but
it's
I can
true.
see how you would then start to think that was a problem. So
Yeah,
they're always going to be finding new problems for us to think about because there's so much money to be made in it. It's an
yeah.
easy way to make money.
It is very
Unfortunately.
easy, actually.
Yeah.
Summer, if it's something that you think well, there for sure is a lot, but something that I didn't ask you, but for you it's important to say, could you say it like a conclusion or for a goodbye or something?
Yeah, I think it kind of is just like coming off of what we just said. Like I think that because we talked about body neutrality and stuff, and I think really what we want to do to feel better in our body is to divest our sense of self-worth from how we look. So to know that we are good enough regardless of how we look. Like that's really like what you and I do. Like that's the work that we do is like helping people to know they're good enough regardless of how they look.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I probably should have mentioned that when I was talking about body neutrality and acceptance, but so that's where I will leave it is that is the work and that we are all good enough like as we are right now. We don't need to change anything. We don't need to achieve something. We don't need to look a different way. Like it's just inherent within us. And, we're all worthy and valuable just as we are.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you for saying it. I love that, and I totally agree with that. We are going to have all your information here, but can you tell if the people is interested to work with you, where they can find you and all that stuff?
Sure. I'm at thebodyimagecoach.com. That's like the easiest place to find my website. And I work with people privately as well. I'm training to be a therapist, so that's what I'm doing as well right now as I continue to work with people privately. And then we also train providers, so other coaches, dietitians, therapists. We help them to incorporate body image work into their work with clients. And I have a podcast called Eat the Rules that has over 313 episodes as of today. So yeah.
I love it. I love that podcast. You have to go there. It's
Oh,
amazing.
thank you so much, Carla.
Summer, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate your time, your words, your experience, and with my heart, I really grateful for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for all of your work. You're amazing too, and I really
Um,
appreciate you inviting me to be here.
Thank you, thank you. Gracias a todos por escucharnos hoy. Si quieren ver el programa con subtítulos en español, vayan a YouTube, ahí va a estar. Y si no, bueno, pues aquí en Spotify, compártanlo. La verdad es que es una oportunidad increíble y bueno, la sabiduría de Summer la pueden encontrar también en su podcast, pero aprovechenlo aquí y compartan el episodio. Gracias. Bye.
Thank you.